The competition to replace Canada's aging fleet of fighter jets is expected to take off this month, and it's already hit some turbulence south of the border.
The United States spends more on defense than anyone else. And who builds the arsenal?
A very small military. They rely on our military. We basically protect Canada. You know, they don't pay very much for military, and the reason they don't pay much is they assume that we're going to protect them.
Made major investments in defense.
You know, when it comes to military spending, Canada has always relied heavily on the United States. Their military is relatively small, and for decades the assumption has been that America would step in to protect them if needed. Washington has essentially shouldered that burden. But recently, Ottawa has been making some big moves. Billions of dollars have gone into modernizing defense, with officials promising to accelerate that spending. At the same time, Canada is actively working to diversify its security partnerships beyond its traditional dependency on Washington. And here's where the shock comes in. Some countries that have long been reliable buyers of American-made fighter jets are now reviewing their deals, citing trade tensions as the reason. Canadian leaders, including Mark Carney, have pledged to meet NATO's benchmark of 2% of GDP on defense spending. But this time, instead of reinforcing America's defense industry, they're choosing to invest more at home. Breaking news. Donald Trump is furious tonight as the skies over North America are thrown into turmoil. Canada has just seized a massive fighter jet contract once destined for U.S. manufacturers, catching the Pentagon completely off guard. From Washington to Detroit, shockwaves are hitting the defense industry hard. Just weeks ago, Trump promised tariffs, contracts, and protectionist policies that would keep American jobs in American hands. He stood before workers in Pennsylvania, Seattle, and Fort Worth with the promise of an America-first defense economy. But trade wars cut both ways. After months of escalating tariffs and bitter negotiations, Canada has struck back with a stunning move, claiming fighter jet contracts that were once untouchable symbols of U.S. military power. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Traveling Vibes. It's the best way to stay updated, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's break it down. In Ottawa, the announcement hit like a thunderclap. Canada officially awarded billions of dollars in next-generation fighter jet contracts to European manufacturers, freezing out American firms for the first time in decades. Instead of U.S. factories in St. Louis, Fort Worth, and Seattle, these jets will be assembled in Montreal with European engines and Asian electronics. Insiders in Washington admit this is a direct reaction to Trump's sweeping tariffs on Canadian aluminum, steel, and aerospace parts. The Pentagon, which had counted on Canada's orders to keep Boeing and Lockheed Martin production lines moving, has now been left empty-handed. The fallout inside America is already brutal. In Fort Worth, thousands of Lockheed Martin employees gathered outside factory gates in disbelief. "We've built fighters for generations," one worker said. "Now we're being undercut by our closest ally." In St. Louis, where Boeing anchors the city's economy, suppliers are bracing for layoffs. Analysts say as many as 20,000 American jobs could vanish, not even counting the ripple effects on smaller contractors nationwide. The symbolism makes it worse. For decades, the United States has been the undisputed supplier of NATO's air power. F-16S, F/A-18S, F-35s. These were the backbone of Western security. To see Canada openly turn to European and Asian alternatives is more than an economic loss. It's a direct hit to American prestige. Politically, the pain is sharpest in key states: Texas, Missouri, Michigan, Pennsylvania, places already struggling with factory closures. Local leaders are demanding answers from Washington. How could America lose a deal to its closest ally? And why wasn't the White House ready for this? Economists are warning that this is about more than fighter jets. Aerospace is one of the last industries where America dominates global exports. Every lost order chips away at that lead. If other allies, Poland, Australia, even Japan, follow Canada's example, America's share of the global defense market could unravel fast. And here's the kicker: taxpayers will feel it too. With fewer contracts, U.S. firms have to spread costs over smaller production runs. That means the Pentagon will pay more for every plane it buys, with taxpayers footing the bill. Meanwhile, Canada and Europe will get cheaper alternatives, creating a two-tiered market where American jets are the expensive option. Inside the Pentagon, frustration is boiling. Officials say they warned months ago that tariffs could backfire, alienating allies instead of protecting American workers. Those warnings were brushed aside. Now the consequences are real: lost contracts, lost jobs, and lost trust. This isn't just about numbers. It's about families and towns caught in the crossfire. The waitress in Missouri serving coffee to laid-off machinists. The school district in Texas losing tax revenue. The small business in Detroit wondering how to survive the downturn. But here's the bigger picture. Canada isn't stopping with just one ban. Step by step, Ottawa is pulling the plug on American goods that once flowed freely across the border. First, it was potatoes, then tomatoes. Coffee shipments cut. And now, whispers out of Ottawa suggest the next target could be American dairy. Think about it. Milk, cheese, butter, yogurt. If Canada shuts the door, U.S. farmers won't just lose billions. They'll lose one of their closest and most reliable markets. Why is this happening? Because Canada is sending a message. If Washington slaps tariffs on Canadian steel, lumber, or energy, Canada will hit back, harder, and in ways that hurt American households directly. This isn't just about economics anymore. It's about pride, sovereignty, and leverage. Imagine walking into your local grocery store and seeing the shelves half empty. No fresh Canadian maple syrup, no imported Canadian wheat products, and no affordable vegetables because what little is left has doubled in price. That's not a far-off possibility. It's the new reality building at the border. American families are already feeling it. Restaurants report higher prices for basic ingredients. Fast food chains are scrambling to find replacements. And in small towns across the Midwest, where farmers once shipped their goods north with ease, trucks now sit idle. Drivers aren't moving product. Warehouse workers aren't loading pallets. And farmers are questioning how long they can keep their land afloat. Meanwhile, Canada is diversifying. It's sending potatoes to Europe. Coffee is rerouted to Asia. Even dairy is being rebranded for Middle Eastern markets. What the US loses, others are gaining, and fast. Washington is watching as Canada quietly replaces American buyers with global partners. And here's the painful twist. Once those supply chains shift, they may never shift back. Canadian exporters might never return to US markets. American businesses could be permanently locked out. That's not just a short-term fight. That's a long-term collapse of trust between two nations that once called themselves the closest of allies. So what comes next? Experts warn that if the trade war escalates, Canada could target energy next. Oil, gas, electricity, things the US relies on every single day. If Ottawa pulls that lever, America won't just be paying more for groceries. It will be paying more to heat homes, drive cars, and keep the lights on. This is the cost of tit-for-tat politics. Regular families, truckers, farmers, and shopkeepers are caught in the crossfire, while leaders in Washington and Ottawa dig in their heels. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. How much further can this go before something breaks? Will Canada go as far as cutting off beef, pork, or seafood? Will the US retaliate by banning Canadian cars or lumber? And if that happens, who really wins? Canada, America, or no one at all? This is bigger than just potatoes, tomatoes, or coffee. This is about the unraveling of an economic partnership that defined North America for generations. And if it collapses completely, both nations will be left weaker, poorer, and more divided than ever before. So the next time you see an empty shelf at the store, or pay double for something that used to be cheap, remember, this isn't an accident. It's the fallout of a political war being fought not in Washington or Ottawa, but in your grocery cart, your gas tank, and your wallet. The US-Canada trade war has only just begun. And its true cost? You're paying it right now.